Okay, we're recording.
Are we?
Yeah.
We talked a lot about last week. Basically, the focus was automation, like things that make your life easier or unnecessarily easier,
Make you lazy
as fuck.
Yeah.
So we were yesterday. We were watching TV, and we looked outside. And there were a couple squirrels, kind of like climbing up trees, and like they were like going back and forth. It looked like they were carrying shit up to like hibernate. And we were like, wait, do squirrels hibernate? So we're like, hey, this is interesting. Let's look it up. So of course Serena goes, hey Alexa, and starts asking her questions. And she goes, do squirrels hibernate? And Alexa goes, some squirrels do. And I'm like, cool. And she goes, well, what kind of squirrels do we have around here? And she doesn't know.
Okay.
And then she goes, Alexa, where do gray squirrels live? I don't know. Okay. And so we literally had to start like Googling the things. And of course she's continuing to ask Alexa just to prove how not helpful Alexa can be about asking actual questions. And so at one point my wife goes, are there gray squirrels around? Do gray squirrels hibernate in Seattle? I don't know that. And she goes, you know what? You're stupid. And she goes, oh God, I probably shouldn't say that. The 2-year-old's going to hear me. And you hear the 2-year-old walk around the corner and go, that's stupid. Which is a word we've been trying not to teach her yet. And this goes to show
it could be a lot worse.
That my 2-year-old even realizes how stupid Alexa is. But it also, I'm like, the bet has been between us of who's going to be the one that gets her to swear first.
Yeah.
And my money's on the wife, man.
Yeah. I think I already put my money on that too. Yeah, it's always fun to like test how stupid technology is. Like once you realize, it's not doing this, let's see like how good it is at not doing this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you went through like my history of things that I've said back and forth with Siri, it usually by the second or third back and forth, it's me calling her a name for not knowing something or doing something wrong.
Right. Another automation. What?
Sure.
What the hell? I just completely forgot that word. That was so weird. It was like a rift in my train of thought. Anyway, I was listening to a podcast or something, and they brought up that there's apparently such thing as self-driving strollers.
Wait, self-driving
strollers,
like that you put your child in.
That you put a living thing, your living thing, inside of.
Okay.
And let a computer drive it around.
My first question is why?
There isn't an answer to that.
Does it just go along your self-driving car and you're like reading your Kindle?
You're going to end up like Ryan Gosling in the Papyrus sketch on SNL. Like, why did you make this? Johnson & Johnson, you motherfuckers. No, it wasn't them. It was like some like, those startups that just like sell ridiculously expensive things that are completely unnecessary, but people still pay for somehow.
How much is it?
Oh, like $4,000 or something.
Gee, really? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Well, maybe they start at $1,000. Maybe their base model is like $1,000.
Well, yeah. Then where's the limit?
But then when you have a backup camera and you have like a charging port, and it's like $4,000.
Like your stroller's essentially a nanny.
All like your baby's bells and whistles.
Yeah,
literally, they love bells and whistles. Welcome to episode 28 of the Unreasonably Angry podcast. My name is Gary.
My name is Eric.
And how are you fuckers doing this week? It is fall, pretty much, right? Is it officially fall?
Yeah, it's officially fall as of last week.
Awesome. Yeah. Yay. That means rain here in the Pacific Northwest.
It's actually really, really nice today. And I was like, it's really nice weather. It's like 61 and it's sunny. And then I looked at my forecast and it's like rain.
It's sunny right now, so we're like gonna get ready to say goodbye to it. Anyway, you had something happen at McDonald's.
Yeah, so
yesterday.
I'm not as big a Rick and Morty fan as a lot of people are. I'm starting to get into it, and I really enjoy it. It's just I haven't watched it as much as.
There's about that whole thing on Reddit right now where like it was cool. It's still cool to like shit on Rick and Morty fans because their subreddit is like notoriously like just really stupid.
I have no idea.
It's full of stupid memes and people like copying all the memes, and it's just not funny anymore.
Oh, okay.
And they've taken every joke from the show and pummeled it into the ground like a dead horse.
Well, then I'm really glad I've never gone there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm kind of late to the party because it's 3 seasons in now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm like well behind. So like when I'm watching things, it's things that people are like sick of seeing and have watched 1,000 times over. But it's interesting for me. Apparently there's apparently Szechuan sauce is a thing in the show, right? And for a while there, one of the things I did notice was Rick and Morty fans trying to create the recipe for Szechuan sauce and like make their own. But McDonald's thought it'd be a good idea to pair up with Rick and Morty and make a special limited edition Szechuan sauce that they would give out at their stores. Mm-hmm. Which in itself sounds, that's kind of cool and that's kind of fun. And we'll go to McDonald's and get the special sauce for the chicken tenders that they have, which by the way are actually pretty good. So yesterday it was like a very limited release, 2:00, like you'd go. And for me, I would think, okay, if I'm buying McDonald's and I want to try it, sure. Yeah. Well, go check it out.
Yeah.
But I'm not the type of person that's like, hey, let's go dress up as Rick and Morty and stand in line at a McDonald's. I feel like we've been hammering McDonald's lately. But this isn't about McDonald's yet. It's more about just the craziness of, going and standing in line for hours for dipping sauce for chicken nuggets.
Well, here's the problem. Rick and Morty cosplays are, it's the kind of thing where you either like, you do it well, or you just it looks awful.
Got it.
There's no in between. Like you either like 3D print the entire thing and you look exactly like a cartoon, or you look like some weird guy with like Solo cups painted blue. Like
how have I never seen any of this? This is the craziest thing for me is like, this is a pretty big show. Like apparently it's got a huge following.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of people that know about it. I didn't know about it until a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I've certainly never seen anybody. I mean, really, this is all brand new for me. So when I was reading this story, I was like, holy shit, this is a much bigger deal than I thought. So apparently lots of people at lots of McDonald's stood in line for hours.
Yeah.
Now, I don't get that. Like, I understand if there was like a special figurine that you got or something like that, but it's literally just a Szechuan sauce, probably to say that you did it.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back
Well, that's what it is. Yeah, it doesn't say what you did.
Now, the problem arose that it wasn't every McDonald's. You'd go on the app, or you'd go on their website and it would show you which specific McDonald's had the Szechuan sauce.
That probably led to the excitement too. Because when it's like limited, then it's like,
sure. Yeah. Super cool, bro. And then you go, and apparently people stood in line for hours, but each McDonald's had a maximum of like 20 of them. So there were people that stood in line for several hours and didn't get one. I guess some of them actually gave away tickets to the people in line to go, once we're out of tickets, we're out, so you're not getting your Szechuan sauce. So now there's an official boycott on the internet of Rick and Morty fans that want to boycott McDonald's.
That's like, I'm never going to drink a Coke in my life.
Right?
Oh my God.
So the thing was, as I'm reading this story, at first I'm like,
stupidest thing
I was so torn because part of me is like, well, that's kind of shitty that McDonald's didn't plan better than that. But at the same time, I'm like, how fucking entitled are we as a people that we're going to throw a hissy fit because a limited edition item ran out?
Yeah.
And then go to the internet, fuck McDonald's. I'm like, of all the reasons to say fuck McDonald's, they ran out of Szechuan sauce? Like, that's the fucking line?
Right.
That's the straw that broke the camel's back?
Right. And as you were talking about, I was thinking like, there's two types of people in line. There's the people who got it and tasted it and were like, okay, that was good. And then they just go on with their life, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there are the people who didn't get it and they're like, oh, God damn it! I'm going to boycott them forever. It's like, what the fuck?
There's a
both of those people are pathetic.
No, there's a third person. There's a third person there.
Who's the third person?
The third person is the guy who waited with his Rick and Morty shirt on.
Yeah.
Probably drenched in sweat. And got the Szechuan sauce and will never open it. So that he can have Szechuan sauce like buried with him when he dies. Like there's that guy.
He's going to put it in his bunker in Oregon.
He gets bronzed. He names his child Szechuan.
And then he finally opens it like on his deathbed and it's like moldy.
It's
and
disgusting. Like this wasn't even good.
It's not like wine, man. It doesn't age well.
I will say, in the name of trying not to come across them only bashing McDonald's, this last week I did try the new buttermilk chicken tenders, which were quite good.
Well, you did.
That was
no, No, you didn't tell your story about what happened to you.
You know,
After we recorded the podcast, right? It was the same day.
It's the same day. I'm on my way home and I asked the missus, I said, hey, what do you want to eat? And she goes, hey,
on the podcast, we were talking about getting McDonald's delivered, or what do you order it on the app and then go through the
There's
drive-thru?
the mobile where you can order it ahead of time and then drive into one of the like little mobile stalls and wait till they bring the food out, or you can now Uber Eats it to your house.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I did get shit for this week about people who said that it's no different than ordering a pizza.
Wasn't that shit from Carlos, though?
But not everybody knows Carlos to the extent that we do. But my point is, I did get shit, and it was compared to ordering a pizza, which I completely disagree with. But we can have him on here sometime to debate that.
We should. That'd be great.
It'd be really great listening. So I decide on the way home, my wife goes, "Yeah, let's just grab McDonald's." I'm like, "Oh shit!" And in my head, I'm laughing. So I'm like, I just talked about McDonald's being lazy
Did you use
food.
the app?
Huh? No, because in my head I said, you know what? I'm gonna go through the drive-thru. I just preached about it. I don't want to be a hypocrite. Let me go through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
So I get to the drive-thru, probably 2-3 minutes to get to the place where I get to actually order, and I order, and then I sit. And there's a football game starting. At this point, I'm like, I'm gonna miss the game. I'm gonna miss I'm already like halfway through the first quarter. So I get up to the thing, I pay, I get up to the spot, and I look ahead of me, and there's 2 people already in the reserved drive-thru section, and there's one over to the side that's waiting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, I really hope they're not waiting for the same item I ordered. Because apparently the buffalo chicken tenders or the buttermilk chicken tenders are new.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize that, but my kid likes nuggets, but I think she doesn't always eat them all. So I'm like, hey, if I get some tenders, she can eat some, I can eat some. There's a buffalo sauce, so it tastes like I'm eating wings with my game. Fun stuff.
Sure.
So I get up there, and the lady kind of looks at me and goes, "Did you order the buffalo chicken?" Or why do you say buffalo chicken tenders? The buttermilk chicken tenders. And I say, yeah. She goes, "Okay, it's gonna be a little while." And I was like, "Okay." And so I wait, and I finally watch them serve the people in front of me, and they drive away. And then she goes, "Hey, can you actually just pull up, and I'll bring it out to you." At this point, from the time I ordered my food to then was about 9 minutes. And I was like, that's kind of a long time for food. Now, granted, I ordered the large size of it to share with the family. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's just taking a little longer because it's this. I sit there for another 13 minutes. Once it hit 22 minutes, I had enough. Because at that point, it is like ordering a pizza. At that point, it would be delivered to my house by now.
Right.
So I'm trying really hard not to get, I'm clearly, I don't know, is that unreasonably angry? 22 minutes at a drive-thru? I don't think it's unreasonable. Okay. So I look behind me.
Should be like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you've seen, sometimes they have the timers in the window.
Yeah. And this one, they just turn all the clocks were off. So I walk in and I walk up and I go, "Hey, is my order nearly ready?" And the guy goes, "Which order are you?" And I'm looking at their screen because you can see the orders, and I don't even see mine. So I'm like, can you just give me a refund? And I look behind me, and there's 2 guys waiting there from Uber Eats with gigantic fucking orders. Like, one guy had a fucking order, I'm not kidding, he said it was like 16 or 18 items. And he'd already been waiting there for 15 minutes.
My God.
Now, what I took from this story was the universe just shat all over me for going, "Oh yeah, you want to see the drive-thru's an experience, huh? Well, go have a fucking experience."
Yeah.
So I had to wait. I got my money back and I left. And I swore to myself, I'm not going to McDonald's for a while. It was like 3 days later, I was back there getting those chicken tenders. I had to try them.
While you were like telling that story, I was also thinking about like, how would you feel that like let's say you had a friend who worked at McDonald's, and then you applied and they didn't have any positions open. And you're like, maybe I could just like work for Uber and like just take McDonald's orders from McDonald's and drive them to people's houses.
I feel like if you're an Uber driver,
I would be so sad at myself for taking that job.
Jesus. Well, that's the thing though. Is do you think the Uber Eats driver actually makes more than the person that's in the McDonald's making the food?
That's probably why they live with themselves, because they actually make a decent amount.
I just couldn't believe that I was waiting that long for food, and I walk in, there's 2 guys waiting from Uber Eats after I just talked about it. It was
they're getting paid. I mean,
are they though? Or is it per order?
That's true.
I doubt they get paid per minute.
That's probably true.
So that's why they weren't happy. They were both really frustrated too.
That's crazy. So speaking of fast food, this is an interesting segue. Another thing I heard on a podcast today. This is both on Wait, Don't Tell Me. Wait, Don't Tell Me. No, Wait, Don't Tell Me. On NPR. It's that quiz show where they quiz people and they have a guest host.
I haven't listened to it.
Oh, okay. they do like topical quizzes, and
I'll check it out.
one of the topical things they were talking about was Taco Bell.
Oh, the alcohol?
No, not that too. But Taco Bell and Forever 21 are making wardrobes a whole lot saucier this fall.
This isn't real.
It says on their website.
This isn't real.
Yep, it is. They'll come together this October to celebrate personal style and self-expression ahead of the launch of Taco Bell's first fashion collection collaboration.
Taco Bell's making clothes.
Taco Bell is making clothes with Forever 21. That's a real thing that's happening. Hashtag F21X Taco Bell.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know if there's really more to say about that. I just wanted to bring it up. Like, this is a thing that is happening.
The thing is
be
like,
angry about it.
I want to be angry, but that's so fucking
it's so
ridiculous.
absurd.
It's
like,
so ridiculous.
You can't even be angry about it. It's just weird.
Are they? I mean, that's the thing is, are they regular clothes inspired by Taco Bell colors? Do they say Taco Bell on them?
What the fuck? I'm posting this picture on our Twitter.
Please post it.
It's a guy eating Taco Bell with like a weird. You'll just look at our Twitter. It's just it's ridiculous. Oh my god! Speaking of jobs that are humiliating, but people probably get decent money for, is like models who wear ridiculous shit like that.
Oh, dude,
they still get paid well for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that.
That's that.
What's next? What are we talking about?
Well, this week I did want to take a little time this week to talk about. This week was Mental Health Awareness Week, and
This last week, yeah.
This last week, yeah. So one of the things that kind of made me think about it was just how little I heard about it. You know, I hear a lot about. I mean, obviously the news this week, the majority of the news this week was focused on the Vegas shooting, which, of course, like that's going to be first and foremost. It's going to be front and center. It was crazy. Like, I mean,
we don't even have to.
Yeah,
say anything about how angry we are with that.
But it's just it's mind blowing. Like just to see like the numbers that stacked up. Was it 58 that died?
Yeah, and over 400.
That's injured. Just fucking insane. Like that's the kind of thing you think like when a bomb goes off or a plane crashes, but not
it's
some
just
crazy.
It's just
fuck.
bigger than the last big one.
Yeah,
that's how is now.
It's
whatever
like one-upping. Yeah,
it's same with hurricanes. Like,
and that's the
biggest hurricane we've ever seen is bigger than the one last year, and it's like it's
fucking crazy.
It's fucking crazy.
And so obviously the news was taken up with a lot that this week, and I actually kept waiting to hear if there was some sort of mental illness, some sort of background check that didn't get passed, and it didn't seem like it. It seemed like he passed everything, and it wasn't like he just went in on Thursday and bought all these guns. He'd been accruing them and like accumulating them over time.
Yeah,
and it's fucking crazy. Now, what I say about the mental health thing is usually when you're able to go back any of these crazy tragedies like this, you're able to source it back to some sort of mental illness that has some sort of affliction this person dealt with. Doesn't justify what happened, but you're able to go, okay, this could have been picked up. Why didn't we notice this?
Or at least
Sandy Hook was the issue. The guy from Aurora.
Yeah.
All those things there was something wrong with that person's.
Or some kind of combination, like something wrong with like, some kind of mental thing that like lends them to like buy into things. What am I trying to say? Like the things that make him vulnerable to buying into like neo-Nazism or like
or
anarchism or something like that.
I can see where I see the connection that you're making there. Yeah, and that's actually something I wouldn't mind touching on a little bit. A little bit going forward. But what I noticed was that in this case there wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
But as I'm going through this week, obviously a lot of talk is about gun control, and gun control is an important conversation, and it's a debate that a lot of people are having. It's a very fiery debate, and we don't need to get too detailed into our feelings on it. I grew up around a lot of guns. I don't really understand why you need an automatic weapon as a normal citizen. I don't see why we do that.
Yeah.
I'm not against people owning guns, but I think there's still like a logical like, okay, you can have guns, but do you need an Uzi? Like, I don't really think that's something you need to have.
There was an interesting thread on Reddit about like if it was like an Ask Reddit question: if the government were to take away your guns, how would you want them to do it, or something like that?
Okay.
And it was like directly asking gun owners, and a lot of gun owners were like, I just want it available and in my house for like home invasion. Usually is the
self-defense.
Yeah. Usually the thing. And none of them talked about automatic. Like, there's no reason. Like, if that's the reason why you feel like you need a gun, I don't see why you would need like an assault rifle. To stop a burglar.
And that's the thing I think that's the part that gets me so kind of like, it makes me furrow my brow. I'm like, but like, how is this such a difficult conversation?
Right.
And the thing that I noticed this whole week was there was so much talk about the NRA this, the NRA that, the Republicans this, the Democrats that. And I'm like, at the end of the day, like, there needs to be a middle ground somewhere. Like, that's the problem that we have right now, is that nobody can agree on anything. Nobody wants to give an inch either way. People want to go, well, no, guns are bad, no more guns. And then the other side's like, well, fuck you, Second Amendment, I can have whatever I want. It's like, it's not that black and white. It's not. You have to find a middle ground. You have to find, and if that means, hey, you're allowed to have a pistol, you're allowed to have a shotgun or a rifle for hunting, they have to stay in your home, whatever. I've never really understood the concealed weapon thing. Like, I remember going to the mall and there was a guy walking around in Macy's and he had a concealed weapon. I'm like, that seems so weird to me. Like, we're in the kids section of a department store and you're carrying a pistol. Like, that's so strange.
It is.
I'm not judging that person for it, but it's also strange for me to see. So I guess I fall somewhere in the middle of how everybody feel about this.
Yeah.
But the one thing I didn't hear anything about this week, what kind of surprised me, was that there wasn't much conversation about this person's mental health. There was a lot of arguments over, well, he's white, so you're calling him a lone gunman. If he had been black or brown or something else, he would have been labeled a terrorist. And that's another interesting topic. I mean, it's still an act of terrorism. I mean, if you're killing Americans, it's a terrorist attack. So
you're causing terror.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I'm like, that's
pretty clear.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's such a weird differentiation that people make. He's a lone wolf versus a terrorist. And I'm like, well, if he'd used a bomb, would be a terrorist, or would he still be a lone wolf? Like, it's either way, it's still fucked up, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. But all these conversations were happening.
Well, it does in the media.
Yeah.
If it gets into the media, that's how the media represents it, then that does change people's perception.
Well, unfortunately, yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, people take whatever media feeds them and goes, "This is my opinion now," instead of going, "Well, you're right about that, but not really about that." For me, I think it was so weird that I'm watching people get so caught up in the nomenclature that's being used for this person, instead of going, "This guy was a bad person. He did a terrible thing. It's an act of terror." The fact that we're having conversations beyond that is like, that's the part for me. Like, it kind of stuck. But I'm also like, if you're on the other side of it and somebody's saying, "Hey, why are you calling this guy a lone gunman? Why isn't he a terrorist?" And you're like, "Well, because," it's like, no, they're right. Like, it's still a terrorist attack. Yeah. So there's all these conversations. Sorry, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place right now.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, that's a very present issue. Yeah. It's hard not to think about.
What I didn't get was I wanted to try to understand this person's thought process. Now, obviously, they're getting into that. They're going to be looking at his background. Apparently, they found a lot more guns at home, stuff to build a bomb, I thought I heard, and like money that got transferred, just crazy shit, like crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
What I didn't hear a lot about was like what was in apparently his state of mental health. I don't know. I know that with previous shootings like this, depression was a big part. Bipolar was a big part. Multiple personalities was a big part.
Yeah.
And it was weird to me that this week, being Mental Health Awareness Week, that it didn't get brought up more, and that didn't lead into more of a conversation going into this week. We still heard plenty about the national anthem and the taking a knee and all that, but I didn't hear much this week about like, hey, even though this may not have had anything to do with that, clearly you have to have something unstable in your head for you to think it's okay to shoot a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's you got to bridge the gap between like having thoughts like that and doing the actions. Like there's something there that causes people to go over the edge.
Yeah. Right? And I guess what was important to me when I was thinking about it was, as I don't know how much we've talked about on this podcast. Like I am diagnosed with depression. I've had depression. Basically didn't get diagnosed till I was 19.
Which is still relatively
young.
Young, yeah.
Unfortunately, I probably could have been diagnosed earlier. Like there were definitely clear signs.
Yeah.
It's something that I deal with. Like my depression that I have, I deal with some obsessive compulsive disorder. Not as bad as some people have it, but it's something that I deal with. And I have family members that have bipolar disorder. So, I mean, I've really grown up watching these things take place. And so when these conversations happen and I feel like a lot of times it's very black and white. And I feel like there's a lot of stigma about the conversation. People don't understand that. For me, when I'm watching it, I'm like, well, what caused that? What's this person thinking? And in this case, I don't know. That doesn't change what happened, but it's still interesting to go, okay, was there a conversation taking place? Can this at least be something that we take and go forward and go, hey, clearly something was wrong here, how do we make sure that we're stopping these things from happening by seeing these red flags earlier?
Yeah, I think especially depression is something that can be very different on the inside versus the outside.
Yeah.
Like the way that people perceive it who have never experienced it can be like you said, there's stigmas, there are like, I guess, stereotypes, they're just people think about it in kind of naive ways sometimes.
Yeah.
And like if you haven't experienced it yourself, which I have too, I'm not diagnosed with it, I haven't gotten medication, but it's definitely present.
Yeah.
And I've somewhat overcome it, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like it's when you recognize it, when you know that part of your brain is there, it's you always know that it's still there.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to ignore, but you can live with it.
Yeah.
So,
I remember watching a commercial like for like Zoloft way back in the day. And it was like this little Peabody guy, like little cartoon character.
Yeah.
And it was like his life. He's like walking around. There's always this like cloud like raining on him.
Yeah.
And then he like took a Zoloft and then the sun came out.
Yeah.
And
it's
such horseshit.
Like you're saying, like black and white. Like that's so stupid.
Yeah. And I remember watching a YouTube video a while back where a guy kind of like, this is depression, and it only affects you if you let it, and turn this off and did it. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't. You don't get to just like say I'm not depressed anymore.
It's more just like the difference between feeling really, really sad and not wanting to do anything, and feeling really, really sad and just doing things.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the thing is that's
doing
I think that's
things in spite of it.
Well, the thing is the way I've kind of it's a very tough analogy, and I don't know that other people with depression would feel this way. Or feel comfortable with my analogy, but the way I've used analogy for people is I treat it the way people treat insulin or treat diabetes.
Yeah,
I have it. It's part of my life. It's something that I've gone to therapy for. I've talked about. I take medication for. It's just going to be part of who I am. It's part of my life, but it's not going to dictate my life. But there are certain adjustments I have to make because of it.
Yeah.
So like if you're a diabetic, you take your insulin every day. You keep an eye on certain things. As someone who deals with depression, I try not to drink too much. I don't do drugs. It's just not something I'm into.
Yeah.
Exercise, sleep, those factors do make a big difference in my life.
Definitely.
And I think a lot of times people just assume if you're depressed that you cry a lot, or, you just don't want to do anything, or you have negative reactions to this. It's like, no, man, it doesn't, like when you have depression, it's not like you're always down. And that's the toughest part.
Yeah.
When I try to describe it to people, it's not like you're always sad and crying or any of that stuff. Like sometimes you don't even realize that you're having a moment or having a depressive, episode until later. Like, holy shit! Like, I just nothing sounds good. Like nothing that I loved, the things that normally sound really great to me, don't sound good. And then there's no way to explain it to anybody.
Yeah.
And so there have been times where, like, I'll literally be like, I don't feel right. I just feel off. And people are like, well, what's going on? I'm like, I honestly don't know.
That's the hardest thing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that like it's an issue that you don't even really know how to describe.
Well, that's the worst part. Yeah.
So it's like having a symptom of a disease, but you don't even know what the symptom is. So you can't tell your doctor to give you a prescription for it.
And then that's the thing that cracks me up the most is like the thing I've basically been dealing with it for 15 years now, so it's not like it's yesterday. I mean,
yeah.
The funny part for me is I grew up, and I didn't know about this till afterwards, but my dad had depression as well, and he actually went. And my dad, we haven't talked a ton about my father on this podcast, but not the greatest guy. Didn't really lead a very great example for me and my brothers, but
yeah.
There was a period where he finally went and got help because he had some serious anger issues and started taking medication, and things started to get a lot better, like a lot better at home, a lot better with my mom, a lot better with us as kids. And there was a point where it was like, well, things are really great. I don't need this medication anymore.
Oh.
And so we stopped taking it and everything went back to shit. Mm-hmm. The problem is as we were growing up, that's basically the attitude my father had towards any of us getting help with things, was like, hey, you're better now. You don't need that anymore. Mm. That's a problem that I've seen a lot. And that's one of the things that makes me curious a lot when we see these types of huge negative tragedies and events, is like, there are people that will go get the help and they're starting to feel better and they go, I don't need it anymore. And it's like, well, the reason you feel better is because you're taking your medication correctly. Yeah. You're getting the therapy that you need.
Yeah.
And by taking that out, you're actually spiraling back to a worse state because your body's been getting used to a new normal.
Right.
So I remember going in, I had this really rough night. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I literally, like, it was probably the roughest evening I can remember having. Like, just, and it wasn't for anything specific. I had some drinks with friends. It was a big mistake. Something had just happened, and I just felt down, and I couldn't shake it. And so I remember being up for hours that night, just not feeling right. And then I woke up in the morning, and the only way that I could describe it was feeling like an empty husk of myself. Like I felt like none of my guts were there. I just felt like this shell.
Yeah.
And I remember I called a couple friends and I was talking, and I finally said, you know what? Hey, I need to go see a doctor. So I walked into the doctor's office, and they hand me a little pamphlet, and they go, hey, can you fill this out for us to, like, kind of determine where you're at, and the doctor will be back in with you. And I remember, as crazy as it sounds, as I'm filling out this pamphlet, I'm basically checking yes on everything. And as I'm doing it, I'm laughing. I'm like, holy shit, like, this is such an easy...
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people look at that and go, yeah, well, everybody goes through that from time to time. There's a difference. If you've had a traumatic event in your life and you feel down for a few weeks, that's perfectly normal. But if you've had nothing super horrible happen, yet you can't seem to shake that feeling, maybe there's something else going on. It's an actual chemical imbalance in your brain that causes you to feel that way.
Yeah.
And so when you don't go get help, and when you do get help and you don't do it the right way, it's, like I said, it's like not taking your insulin shot.
Yeah.
If you have diabetes and you're eating handfuls of cookie dough and ice cream, not taking your insulin shot, and your foot falls off, you really shouldn't be surprised anymore. Right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing that makes me angry about it is that I looked up an organization called Screening for Mental Health, and they had a quote that was, let me see. We envision a world where mental health is treated with the same gravity as physical health.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's so true. That's the problem, is that, like, and the funny thing about that is that a lot of physical health is directly related to your mental health.
Sure.
Like, your mental health can affect, like, psychosomatically all of, like, your whole body, anything in your body. So it's like, if we had some sort of, like, screening system for, like, teens, or, like, some, not mandatory, but just, like, please do this because it can affect your life, and you might be fine, but you might find something, and then you go to a doctor, you get prescribed something, you do therapy, and then, like, you won't have this huge thing in your head in your 20s where you're like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah.
I was okay when I was a kid. Why am I feeling so different now? Like,
well, and that's the tough part is kind of what you mentioned there is different than physical health. Like, if you break your arm, like, you can see that your arm is broken, or you're like, I mean, exactly. Like, I remember breaking my arm as a kid, and I had a compound fracture, so the bone's literally sticking out of my arm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, I definitely did something here. When you're depressed or you have anxiety, you don't always know what that is.
Right.
And that's the thing a lot of people don't realize is anxiety can go hand in hand with depression. And a lot of people just have this idea that depression just means, like we talked about earlier, sad, crying, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people, they experience it in different ways. Anxiety is a big thing. Like, I think we're actually getting to a point now where more people understand anxiety than they did before.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's going into, like, if you think about in schools, like, they're catching ADD earlier and things like that. The tough part is people tend to, especially an older generation, the one before us, they tend to go, well, there's nothing actually wrong with the kid. There's too much sugar, or there's too much this, there's too much that. Yeah. Sometimes it's an actual chemical thing.
Yeah.
And there's a line there. And the problem that goes along with that is that people tend to try to either self-medicate or go, oh no, my kid can't be depressed. How could you be depressed? You're white and you're rich. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, it's a chemical imbalance. I mean, right. there's a fundamental, like, difference between, not a fundamental difference, but there's a fundamental, like, misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And there's this, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Everything's gonna be fine. Just, think about it. You'll be fine. No, like,
it's not how it works.
Yeah. And I think the biggest part about that, like what you said, is therapy. People there's this huge fucking, like, negative connotation when you say therapy. People are like, oh, you're going to therapy? It's like, yeah, but therapy doesn't mean, like, if you said, hey, I'm going to physical therapy, for what? Oh, I hurt my arm. Oh, cool.
Yeah, see that?
Nobody would say, oh, what the fuck's wrong with you, pussy?
Right.
Oh, nothing. It'd be like, hey, okay, cool. Well, what time are you getting out? Let's go play. Let's go play a game. Let's go play basketball.
That's the thing. That's like.
But if you say to someone, hey, I'm going to my group, or I'm going to my therapist, or I'm going to see a psychiatrist, people are like, whoa, what's wrong with you? Yeah. Are you going to snap? It's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, and that's the thing is I think there should be a sense of humor about it. Like once you're comfortable with yourself, like I definitely make fun of myself from time to time for the things that I deal with, because for me, it's easier to deal with difficult things if I'm able to make light of them.
Yeah.
But at the exact same time, like it's still an important thing. And I know that not everybody feels comfortable that way. You know what I mean? Like when I was going to see therapists, I would joke about myself. I'm like, oh, got to go get the head checked, make sure we're good to go, make sure I'm not going to fall down this week. Just little things like that.
Yeah.
Where some people look at it and they go, I don't want to tell people I'm going to therapy. They're going to think something's wrong. The problem that's fucked up with that is if you're going to improve yourself, regardless of what it is, you're going to fix something that should be commended. You know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of strength to be able to say, hey, something's wrong. I need to fix it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's about yourself. And especially when it's about something that you don't fully understand all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It does take a lot to identify the issue and then seek out help with it. And you were talking about anxiety, and the good thing about the collective, like society's view of it now, is that we do focus a lot more on stress than we used to, it seems. Like my mom has had some stress related physical health problems that's brought on by stress. And like she doesn't have like full-blown anxiety, but she does have, like, she's been in stressful situations with her job and stuff. So and I remember depression definitely came first, but I remember when anxiety like walked in the door and was like, hey, depression, how you doing? And I was like, what the fuck is happening? It's like, Jesus. It was mostly because like it was like depression was already there, and I was starting to recognize it, and I was starting to go like, oh wow, I really like, I think I am, like when the literal word came in my head, like depression, I was like, oh okay, I might be depressed. And then like that somehow triggered the anxiety. And it was like, oh shit, I didn't know I could be depressed.
It's gonna sound like a really weird connection, but have you ever had a dream where in your dream you like did something wrong, like you broke the law, and then in your dream like, holy shit, I broke the law, and then that fear you get, like, I'm in trouble, I'm gonna go to jail. Like that's, people that don't get it, it's like this crazy, it's the only way that I can really relate it to is like a crazy feeling of like, it's almost like fear and euphoria mixed. Like you're aware that it's a problem, but it's terrifying to know at the same time, because you're like, holy shit, maybe that's what it is. But then you're like, holy shit, what does that mean for me?
Well, it's what causes that, I think, is that people don't know that it's okay. Like it's okay that you're depressed. Like obviously you don't feel okay, but it's okay that that's happening to you, because it happens to people. So like, but when you don't have that piece where it's like, once you like start realizing that you are depressed, you can just go, okay, this is fine. I just need to be aware of it. I need to do stuff if it like gets really bad. But like, if you don't have that, then that's where the anxiety comes in. Like I was talking about, like, then you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that this was going to happen to me, blah, blah, blah. So
well,
it's like,
the funny thing is like I said, I got diagnosed with depression when I was 19. And I actually didn't have full-on like blown panic attacks or anxiety attacks until I was 25, 26.
Wow, yeah.
That's how long it took for that portion of what I go through. And the weird thing is when I tell my story to anybody that wants to listen, is that you think it's like always a negative traumatic event that triggers these things. And it's not. Like for me, it was, I remember when I first met my wife, your sister, things were going well. Like things were good in my life, like big changes were happening. And I remember having full on panic attacks and I couldn't figure out why. And I remember talking to my doctor and he's like, okay, well, what's changed? And I was like, well, I did start a relationship. He's like, well, how long you guys been together? A couple months. He goes, do you in love with her? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you live together? And I was like, well, yeah, we're about to. And he's like, well, yeah, that can. So even though you're thinking, hey, these are such positive things, it's still a big adjustment in your life. And if you're someone who deals with depression or deals with that, your body doesn't always know how to process big events. And it can cause the best of things to feel freaky, scary, anxiety driven. And I think the thing that you mentioned there is knowing it's okay. And I think the number one thing that people miss out on is too many people are afraid to tell anybody. And so nobody's there for them. And I'm not saying that like, not everybody has the ability to be there for someone going through a depressive episode. I understand that. Like, I don't vilify people that can't handle it. Like, there's a lot of things where it's like, hey, go help people. Not everybody's wired that way. I get that. If I were to call someone when I was really depressed or really anxiety, not everybody I know could handle that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people that have and that have stuck by me through my worst of times, I appreciate on a level I can't put into words. But when we are there, when we have the ability to reach out and just, for me, it literally could be, hey man, you just want to hang out, play a video game? Hey, let's take your mind off it. Hey, dude, it's perfectly fine. It's cool, dude. Don't worry about it.
And and that goes back to what we were saying about being on the inside and being on the outside.
Yeah.
Because like, I feel like there could be, going back to teens, like in school, I feel like I could have learned a lot more in health class about these things. And I could have known like how to identify it with myself, how to identify it in others, and how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's not always like, cheer up, man. It's not always like,
I realized it just said,
why don't you feel
about
good? Why don't you just go to Disneyland or something? Like,
it's not a physical manifestation of, it's not reacting to stimuli and going, hey, this thing makes me feel sad. It's, you start everything with this layer of, it's, for me, a lot of times it's a numbness. It's not an actual like sad, I want to cry. It's literally just like carrying a blanket around.
Right.
It's like, I just feel kind of weird and then I kind of have to shake it off. Not everybody has the ability to shake it off. Not everybody is able to do that. And so unfortunately, what leads in a lot of those cases, people not feeling comfortable talking to anybody, they feel completely alone, which leads to worse stress and depression. And then you have one of two options. One, people spiral the negative way, or you have people that try to self-medicate. And so when they're not going to get the actual help they need, they resort to other things, which if you're like, I have family members that, went to the bottle, let me drink so I don't feel this. Let me drink so I don't feel sad. Problem is with depression is alcohol is a depressant. Yeah. So you're compounding your depression.
Yeah.
And what I've experienced a lot in my life and people that I've loved and have had full on conversations about depression with is they go, well, when I'm drinking, I feel good. And it's like, yeah, well, that's not how alcohol works. Like in that moment, you're killing off a bunch of brain cells and so you feel happy. But alcohol stays in your system for like 48 or 72 hours. So the worst part of your depression from the alcohol is not going to hit you for a couple days. Yeah. So if you're someone that's dealing with these issues and then you compound it with that, you're just setting yourself up for a worse spiral.
Yeah.
But if you're afraid or you don't have that support system or you feel afraid to talk to anybody about it, you try to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where we've seen the opioid epidemic. We've seen heroin. We've seen meth. A lot of these things come from people that go, hey, I don't want to feel this way. I don't really want to talk to anybody about it, but it's really easy for me to get high and I feel good for a little while.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at in society now is we feel comfortable talking about tough things like cancer, and we've gotten better talking about suicide, and we've gotten, talking about PTSD, for example, we're getting better at it.
Yeah.
But one of the things we're still terrible about is being able to identify depression or bipolar disorder and knowing how to handle it in those situations.
Yeah.
One of the things that you and I have talked about, my brother died in 2016, and my brother battled bipolar disorder for years. My brother went through some pretty rough stuff when he was a kid, and it really manifested itself later in life. My brother, unfortunately, did try to do the same thing. He tried to self-medicate. He did, get involved in some things he shouldn't have. And the night that he died, if there was a better way of recognizing mental illness, I think that may have prevented his death. Now, I do not blame the police officers that were involved in his death. I don't look at anybody and go, hey, this is your fault. I look at it and go, hey, how do we prevent people from dying if there's a way around it? There have been times where, like, if you're like one of those suicide negotiators, right? And somebody's standing on the side of a building saying, I'm going to kill myself. There's usually a moment where you go, okay, I may not be dealing with someone who's got everything going on. Like there's clearly something wrong here. You wouldn't talk to them the way you would talk to Jim Joe on the sidewalk. It's like, hey buddy, get out of the way. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that I've read a little bit about is police trying to get more experience with that. But one of the things that I think we're still really lacking in this country is this ability to go, okay, what kind of situation am I dealing with here? Am I dealing with drugs? Am I dealing with drugs and bipolar? Am I dealing with a schizophrenic? There's so many things that go along with that. And I know it's a lot for a police officer to be able to do is walk up on a situation and go, hey, this person's schizophrenic. Let me get the mental team out here. But at the same time, it makes me go, if we're getting to that point, that means there's so many instances that aren't being recognized early enough and they're not getting the help that they need.
Definitely.
My brother was incarcerated for years. And there was a long period of time there where he wasn't getting the correct mental health that he needed. Now, I'm one of those people that have a hard time with prisons because I go, you did something wrong, you broke the law, so you got yourself there. So any complaints you have while you're there, I'm like, well, you shouldn't have broke the fucking law, right?
Right.
But at the same time, they're still human beings. And if someone's in there and we're paying tax dollars to keep them incarcerated, then what we should be doing is rehabilitating them.
Yeah.
Right. We're not just, prison shouldn't just be punishment.
Right.
If I have a 2-year-old daughter, if she does something wrong and I go, you're going in timeout, and I go put her in timeout and I don't tell her what she did wrong and I don't try to help her learn from that, then all she's learning is this is punishment.
Yeah.
If you put somebody in prison and you go, hey, you're in prison, you don't get any of these things from now on, you're not a human being anymore. Okay, your prison time's up, go. What have we benefited? Like what has helped?
Right.
But if we take the time to go, okay, look, my brother's name was Justin, and you say, Justin, look, this is the law that you broke. This is the therapy you're going to get. These are the occupational things we're going to do while you're here, and we're going to work on turning your life around. Now, granted, not everybody in there is going to want to get the help they need. Some people are just like that, but there are people that want the help. My brother started to take medication while he was in there. Did not get the correct therapy that he needed. They stopped giving him the medication at one point. And for me, I go, what benefit did you do? You say you don't want him in jail. You say you don't want to have these guys in prison. Yet what happened between the time he was there and the time that he left to help improve his mental state? And I think that's the one thing. And obviously, as an outsider, it's easy for me to say these things. I have done some research. It's not just me sitting here chirping.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that's really important. And if, like you said, if we can get that help to people young, we do sex ed in 5th grade now.
Right.
How early are we doing mental health?
Yeah.
Maybe just maybe somebody catches my brother in 5th grade or catches me in 6th grade and says, hey, these are the things to look out for. If you ever feel yourself feeling these things, this is what it could be, and go get help. It's okay. Yeah. Instead of, hey, feeling you're the weirdo, because kids feel like the weirdo. Like if you don't understand the way that you feel, especially young, you feel like something's wrong with you, not, hey, something's wrong with me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And not just, and it's not always just an internal battle. It's also like a battle with other people. Like I know some people who like have social anxiety, and that's a whole other thing, because it makes it difficult to function in the world, not just like on your own, but like with other people. And it's necessary to function with other people to live. So it's and there's so many. There just needs to be, speaking of awareness, that last week was mental health awareness. This month is depression awareness. Yeah. There needs to be an awareness. We're not unreasonably angry about the fact that there isn't enough awareness.
Well, so to wrap a lot of this up in a bow, I mean, it's been a
heavy episode.
Yeah. I'd like to end on some. Maybe we'll do a rapid fire before we go. Mm-hmm. We are going to post some links to a couple different websites. There's some great information out there. Yep. We're not just saying these things to say them. We're saying them because they are important to us, and we're hoping that maybe if you're one of our listeners and it's something that you've struggled with and you want somebody to talk to, email us. Shoot us a tweet, shoot us a text, shoot us a Facebook message, whatever. Definitely. We're here to listen. And if it's something that you've dealt with and you have thoughts on, you can email us about it as well. But it's something that we noticed, at least both of us felt this week, that we'd wished there had been more. And even though our podcast isn't, it's not, the Joe Rogan experience, but if we can get out there and help one person, then that's something that we felt it was important to talk about.
Definitely. So we're not going to do a rapid fire, but we do, we're going to end in like unreasonably angry fashion and to our typical really silly. So you were going to talk about
I was watching the 49ers Colts game today.
Yeah.
My poor, terrible 49ers. They're 0-5 now. But so as we talked about previously on the podcast, the kneeling at the anthem thing. Okay, we haven't really we haven't gotten into too much detail with it, but apparently to Trump, that's like the worst thing in the fucking world. And we don't talk about Trump very much because it's low hanging fruit.
It's what's so stupid about it is that like the reason everyone talking about it is not because of the reason Kaepernick knelt in the first place.
Well, that's the whole point.
The reason is that because Trump made a big deal of it.
So in other words, he kind of won. He kind of won by making it about himself instead of
because it's not It's not about the reasons Kaepernick did it in the first place.
And the thing is, people, like you said, Kaepernick is the first name that comes to mind. But Eric Reed, he was one of the people on the 49ers that knelt with Kaepernick during that whole thing too. And he's still on the team and he's still doing it for that reason. And he's come out a couple times and been like, hey, it's great that everybody locked arms and everything like that. I'm just hoping that people are remembering what the reason was behind this. That it wasn't just to say fuck you to Trump. It was to stand up for...
Trump wasn't even in office when
exactly
he did it the first time.
It was about, equality. It was about standing up for equal rights and things like that.
Injustices.
So what happened today is Mike Pence, who's the vice president. I don't think I've ever said his name out loud. Like, that's how little he means to me. He decided to go to the game, the Colts and Niners game, and he got there. And then the anthem happened, and I guess some of the Niners knelt, which makes sense since that's the team that's been doing it the longest. Yeah. And he fucking left. And he fucking tweets out that he left because he and the president aren't going to dignify any sport where the players are above the national anthem. Okay. Fuck you. You fucking knew first and foremost that was going to happen. You guys have been bitching about it incessantly for weeks.
Yeah.
You know the 49ers are the team that's been doing it since day one.
Yeah.
Don't act for a second like you didn't use this as a fucking PR. This is 100% you went there to say you were there and to say you left because of this.
Yeah.
What's fucking infuriating to me is it's not, if you don't have an opinion about people kneeling, fine. If that's real, like if it really fucking twists your tits that bad that somebody's taking a knee, fine. If you want to go burn your jersey because one of the players on your team did it, fine. By all means, you have every right to do that as well. But to say that the reason you left the fucking stadium was because a player did something you knew they were going to fucking do, especially when it has zero effect on your life at all, and they've come out numerous times to say that it has nothing to do with the flag and has nothing to do with the Marines or the troops. It's 100% about what the country is supposed to stand for, and that they want to make sure that they're bringing awareness to something that is important to them.
Yeah.
They're not throwing a hissy fit. They're not shooting people. They're not starting riots in the middle of the goddamn street. They're fucking taking a knee during the anthem. They're not turning their back on the anthem, by the way. They're not turning their back on the flag. They're not sitting. They're not making rude gestures. And your fucking pompous ass has to make it about you now.
That it's extremely telling that this is an issue, because this is apparently the world we live in now. Peaceful protesting.
Yes.
Is even a problem.
Yes.
Like, even just peacefully doing something that doesn't bother anyone, doesn't fucking interrupt anything, it doesn't change anything, there's no problem with it besides, like, you having a problem with it.
Yeah, and the craziest part to me is that these fucking idiots, Pence and Trump, have actually convinced people that this is somehow an affront to being an American. It's somehow an affront to the flag and an affront to the troops. I have friends that are
people
Marines.
Believe that. Yeah, that's
and they
insane.
literally say out loud, dude, I joined the military to fight for free speech. They're not doing anything they're not burning the flag. They're not turning their back on the flag. They're not saying the fact that it's actually convinced people to vilify these people who are literally only speaking out for something they believe in is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
crazy.
Ridiculous.
It is.
And I know it's not as important as some of the other stuff that we talked about, and I could have done this in a 1 minute fucking rapid fire, but fuck that guy and fuck the bullshit. Let people fucking talk, dude. Just listen to each other. That's all I'm trying to get at. I think that's all I'm trying to get at. This entire act that actually ties in with the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Stop and listen. Listen to what somebody else is saying. You may help someone out in the long run. Instead of talking and spewing out what you think they're saying, or you think that the interpretation of what somebody's going through is, take a second and fucking listen.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Thank you for listening to episode 28 of the Unreasonably Angry podcast. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please rate and review us on Facebook or iTunes. We want to know what you think.
And if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, want to chime in on the conversation we had today, Want to tell us to not be so serious next week? Want to tell us to be more serious? Want to tell us to go fuck ourselves? Feel free. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and at unreasonablyangrypodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, my name is Eric.
And I'm Gary.
Stay angry, fuckers.